honey child, tonight's the night. There's a car I can borrow tomorrow. We're gonna swing till broad daylight, small day tomorrow.
So how do we get from a silversmithing and metalwork degree to painting live at jazz gigs and forging out a career of painting like that?
It's an interesting one. There's a lot of rhythmic stuff goes on in metalwork. If you imagine raising a copper bowl, you've got lots of repeat sounds. There's a lot of sound in metalwork. I think it's mainly because it wasn't necessarily the thing that I chose to do. It was just a good way to leave home, move to London, go to art school, get a degree. I did a really great, exciting two-year foundation course. And I kind of thought I was young and I didn't have any confidence in my drawing ability. And I thought I needed to do a 3D design course. I applied for wood, metal and ceramics, so a broader base course. But I didn't get into Brighton or Middlesex. So to do that, and Camberwell offered me a place, pool choice place, to do metalwork. And I decided it was a no-brainer. I was 18 years old. Sure. I could move out of home, live in London, get a full grant and do a degree. So I just kind of chose it, but it was really boring.
Were you painting at the time as well?
No, I was still screen printing as a subsidiary study. Right. And kind of always, you always keep a sketchbook when you're an art student. Sure. And you learn about art history and you cover art topics. And I mean, it's interesting because if I'd have done a fine art course or a painting, a drawing or a screen printing course, which I would have loved to have done if I had the confidence, I don't think I would have learned the skills that I learned. I actually learned how to make things really precisely using tools and machinery that as a girl in those days you didn't get taught those things. And a lot of the kind of my attention to detail in the way that I present my work and about spatial awareness when I hang an exhibition or whatever, that definitely comes from doing a strong design course.
And has music always been part of your life, or is that something you discovered?
Well, not really, and not until I was into pop music as a teenager, and punk came about, had a big influence in 77, changed a lot of things, whole social spectrum as much as just the music.
Were you a punk rocker yourself?
I was a kind of pop, I was a sort of fashion punk.
What was your image like? Pink hair?
Pink hair, yeah, but not spiky. And the music thing came about because I met a trumpet player when I was 18 and went out with him for 6 years, and he was older than me and he was into improvised music, which is the kind of area of music that I'm still around today. Sure. And he gave me a saxophone, and instead of playing it, I started to draw it. I was still doing my degree, and I made kind of sculptural forms based on drawings of the saxophone. In the old days, we had no way of designing a flyer or a poster or a backdrop. And all the musicians used to say to me, "Oh, Gina, you're an artist, can you do us a poster, or can you do us a flyer, or can you do us an album cover, or can you..." So it was very hands-on, it was old school, so I did quite a lot of mono-printed cassette covers and stuff like that. And I started to draw in the audience, and that kind of developed into...
Did you like the music?
Not at first.
From punk to some of that.
Not at first. A lot of it. I liked things like I used to go to Bracknell Jazz Festival, and on the fringe were people like Rip Brig and Panic, who were Nana Cherry, for example, and that was more a kind of dance end of jazz. And then at that time there was a big hit by Pigbag and Working Week. They were kind of the more accessible soul funk end of the jazz scene. But I used to get dragged to lots of things that I hated. But it wasn't until I split up with the said trumpet player that I realised that actually I really miss going to gigs. So that's partly when I started to draw, was because I'd go to gigs on my own.
Yeah, well, you say you used to draw at these gigs. I can imagine that's quite tight or disciplined.
No,
look at your work now, it's quite loose.
It was never tight or disciplined.
Oh, okay.
I always worked expressively, but I didn't have the tools to working the way that I do now. So, you know, I think when you start out as doing anything, you use the wrong materials.
Yeah.
Like I was using oil pastel and other not great looking materials. So I think materials are a very big part of what you produce. The changing point for me was I started to take collage materials to gigs, and so that breaks up whole surface areas immediately, and it's like making something rather than the pressure of drawing or painting.
And when you're painting now, like tonight you're painting Ian Shaw, do you get excited when you capture the image of Ian, or is it the actual sound of the music and sort of a new picture comes out that looks nothing like Ian? What's that relationship like, and what's exciting for you?
So the excitement has been, I mean, the development. So initially I started off painting lots of groups. I mean, over the years I've painted loads and loads of groups, and I have a residency at Jazz in the Round, which I've been doing once a month for 7-8 years, since 2012. No, actually 8 years. And so they're always groups. There's 3 groups, 2 groups and a soloist. So as the years have gone by, I've become, and it used to be more about the instruments. So in fact, when I first started to draw and paint at gigs, I didn't even put the people in, really, because I used to have no confidence to do that. It was about the shapes of the instruments. It was about form. And then now I get to the point where I'm all about the musician's hands, or the musician's mouth, or the music, or the way their feet are when they're doing something. If it's a guitarist, you know, the knee. Where's the knee? It's like it's about. So sometimes, if I run out of time, I've often got this figure and the instrument's not necessarily there so much. It's about the gesture of how they play that interests me, and I'm getting more and more excited by painting soloists, and I'm into their single thing with their instrument. I can paint sort of generically double basses, drum kits, grand pianos, time and time again, and the instruments can be the same. It could be 2 bands playing the same instruments because they've gone to a venue, it's a festival, same colour double bass, same colour drum kit. But for me, the interest really is about how they tackle it, where they sit on, where the drummer, how high the drummer sits on the seat.
But it's all quite visual. What about the actual sound of the music? I mean, there is some of this music is really free and improvised.
Yeah, well, that's what drives me.
Is there any relationship there with the art?
Yeah, there is a big relationship there, and if the music's frenetic, which a lot of the music that I paint is really frenetic, then I feel in those moments is when I don't have to hold back. When things are really quiet or minimal, as a lot of stuff that I paint is really minimal and pin drop quiet, then I've got to be really careful what I'm doing because of the sound that I might make, but also it's more pensive then. So when I'm doing a festival and over 9 days, I probably painted about 18 to 20 something sets, maybe more. So I'm on the move and I've got my eye in, I've got my kit, everything's working, I've made modifications every day. You know, I've got a kit that I work with and it works, it functions because I've been doing it for years. But it's like having a palette, although it's not a palette because I work with acrylics, so they're dry. But it's like knowing what I did last time, 10 minutes ago, will follow into the next thing. I think the minute you start to put any form at all into an abstract painting, you're making your own statement. So it's like if I'm working in an abstract way with a soundscape. So say I've got a group or I might be working with a soloist. I do sort of performance stuff with soloists where I'm also sonically interacting with because a canvas is like a drum really. And so, but then I become very conscious if I'm working rhythmically, I want to break that up, or, you know, I might scratch on the canvas or bang on the frame, or, you know, if
Back to your metalwork days.
Back to my metalwork days. And I did a couple of years of hand drumming in a drumming group in order to be able to use my left hand, so that it wasn't just so right hand focused. But I don't do that too often, and mostly I'm in situations where I can't make sound. So, but I think that when you say for example, I might be painting an abstract picture, but then I might put a circle in it. Well, that's kind of like a statement. Where did that come from? Did it come from something I heard, or Did it just come from my head, or did it come from I'm a trained visual artist, so did it come from the need to actually put some balance in there with that?
Yeah,
you know,
to make
it's
the
like,
work. Yeah.
So it's like even if you've got an improvising musician making sound, they would like to be as free as possible, but they're still going to rely on their licks, and they're still going to rely on the things that they know. And it's about it's about being in such a great space that you can forget as much of that as possible, and start from fresh all the time. And also, I think the difference between making pictures and making pieces of artwork is actually striving for the best that you can be at all times. It's like I can rely on certain things I know about what I can paint, or I can push it, and I think that's the fine line between doing decent work and doing stuff just to make, the chocolate box picture.